Ladies and gentlemen, this is your boy Precise. We're back at you, another episode of the How To series. I have an extra special guest, longtime friend of mine, my guy, TV producer Rashidi Hendrix.
I appreciate that, man. So, my name is Rashidi Hendrix, and I am the CEO of Metallic Entertainment as well as Metallic Pictures. We are a full-service production company specializing in television and motion pictures. Currently, we produce shows like Bet on Black. We produce the Jam Master Jay documentary on Hulu, which is a series called Set the Record Straight. But in addition to that, I've also produced shows like The Apprentice, Celebrity Apprentice, Kitchen Nightmare, Chef Roble and Company. I've done a number of shows primarily on cable and streaming. And one of the things that we're also focused on is also producing feature films. So that's my story.
Okay, nice. So you have a lot going on, man.
Yeah.
What school did you go to? I know, but let the audience know.
Well, I went to the illustrious highest of Seven Hills, Florida A&M University in Florida, and
What was your major, though? Let them know.
I was going to say my major was where I got a bachelor's in industrial and mechanical engineering.
So this is the funny thing, right? I've noticed that at least all the people I know that have gone to FAM, no one works in that major.
But I think but truthfully, that's really like that's across the board.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I think if you're highly specialized, like, your intention was to go to law school or med school or whatever, then you kind of were on a path. But I pretty much think that most people that are in the entertainment industry, at least, they kind of have very obscure majors.
Well, economics is obscure. Engineering is kind of specific.
Yeah.
Well, if you go to school to be a mechanical or electric engineer, normally you come out being a mechanical engineer.
Well, I think part of it for me was, I was really, really interested in engineering after seeing this movie called Moving that Richard Pryor was in.
Okay.
So I was like in maybe 8th grade, and I saw the movie, and I thought, oh, that's what I want to do. Because he was working on trains.
Okay.
I used to ride the train every day.
Right.
So, so I just thought that was a cool job. I never knew that was engineering. And then I saw the math and science that was involved, and I was like, I don't know about this. but math and science was something I was always pretty good at.
Right.
And, to get an engineering degree, believe me, there's 7 math classes you have to take.
Right. Serious.
So you got to really be into it. And, I was always a critical thinker and a problem solver. So I think I had the mindset to be in the major, but I think creatively, I think once I discovered that I wanted to be in the entertainment industry, I kind of.
So how did that happen? How did that come about?
Well, initially, I snuck into a music conference called Jack the Rapper.
Jack the Rapper.
And when I went into the music conference, and I was probably like about 18 years old, and I had never seen celebrities before. It was like my first time. And Martin Lawrence was the first celebrity I saw.
Okay.
And it was him and Shantae Moore and Aaron Hall, if anybody remembers those people. And that was it. I was like, oh. And then I was like.
So that was it. So when you saw them and you was a part of that environment, what did it make you?
Well, I never knew there was a business behind it.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I just liked being around the celebrities because I thought that was, these are the same people I used to watch on TV. You're a kid and, and especially you live in the city, it's like, it's not something that's attainable. You don't think you have access to these people. You may be that one person on your block that made it or that blew up, I mean, I could tell you a lot of people that in my neighborhood where I grew up that became somebody, and we were all like proud of them, but to actually be next to these people, you were kind of like, oh man, that's Martin Lawrence, so it threw me off. And so I think part of it was once I found out there was actual business behind it, I never knew there was an industry.
Okay.
I don't think I knew about what managers did. I don't think I knew what A&Rs did, or people who were, label executives did for a
Right.
living. I didn't even knew that was a business.
Right.
I knew there was labels, but I didn't know the components of a label.
Right.
So once I found that out, I was like, well, I can do this for a living. I was like, oh yeah, this is it.
And then what was the next step after that?
Well, I think one of the things that I was really interested in, early in my career was I was a DJ, and I think DJing is what brought me into, into the business. Once I started DJing allowed me to get access. It actually allowed me to get a job at the radio station on campus, and then finding out all the other components through the radio, and then eventually becoming a college rep for Def Jam.
Okay.
That's what really kind of brought me into the business. And then I realized that, there was a whole industry, and I was obsessed. I would read the trade magazines. I was calling the executives at Def Jam every day, and that was when long distance wasn't free.
Right.
That was 10 cents a minute.
Right.
So,
Is it fair to say that prior to that, like prior to going to college,
yeah.
you had no aspiration of being in entertainment?
Well, I did go to performing arts high school, so
Okay.
for what it's worth, I did play saxophone growing up, and that was something that I always. But that's really more the artist side, creative side. But I never really to make it a career out of being an artist. It was just something I did, just because it was.
So you kind of did that, and then the engineering part was, that was safe, and so we kind of.
I don't even think it was safe. I think that was really what I intended to do.
Okay.
Actually.
So when you first started, that was the plan.
I intended to go to engineering school, but again, like I think. Because I was so young when I discovered the entertainment industry, that was where the conflict happened. And that's when I was like, okay, I don't think this is it. But you know what? Now it's safe to get this engineering degree, so let me just go ahead and get it.
Right.
But like before going into high school, going into college, like I didn't really think about it in that way. It was just more like, hey, this is a great degree to have, and my mom is cool with it, and my dad is cool with it, so,
So fast forward, how did you get your first taste of being able to produce something?
Well, I would say probably later on, and when I say produce, I mean, I use that word lightly because, I had a whole career in the music industry before I went into television. You know what I mean? But, I think that, once I got into television and I started working, like even the first show that I worked on, I was the music supervisor of the show. And the music supervisors are basically people that, they're the people that are kind of the liaison between the director and the network or studio. And they basically help the director or the production find music cues for the show.
Okay.
So that was my transition out of the music industry into TV and film because I was already in the music industry and now I had a music job in film and television. So it's kind of a lateral move. And I had plotted that out 5 years out before I did it, know. Because I knew I wanted to be in television and film while I was in the music industry.
Okay.
So
why is that?
I think when I found out about music supervision, I just thought that was the greatest job that you could have. I was like, oh, that's the job I want. I think when you start in the entertainment industry, you pick a job and you learn that craft, maybe as an assistant, as an intern, but that may not be ultimately where you're going to end up. Some people stay. If you come in and you're a marketing intern, you might stay, become a product manager, or go all the way up to be a head of marketing for a label or whatever. But I think when I first started, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I knew A&R was kind of interesting to me because I was working with the artists and I liked being in the studio and having a music background. I felt like that was more my thing. But then when I discovered music publishing, I said, oh, this is definitely where I want to be. But what my mom used to always say, every 5 years you got to reinvent yourself. So I felt like music publishing was my main place, and then I said my reinvention is going to be as a music supervisor.
Is it fair to say that in the music/TV business, there are like hundreds of different careers that
Sure.
regular people know nothing about?
Yeah.
We probably know about being an actor, rapper, singer, producer. That's it.
And each career path is a different industry almost.
Right.
It's a sub-industry of that industry. You know, most people that work in television, executives or agents or managers, if they're just strictly TV, they don't know anything about the motion picture side of the business.
Right.
You know, if you work in music publishing on the pop side, you don't know anything about the R&B and hip hop side. You know, because there's different set of
So
relationships.
it's extremely extensive.
Yeah, it's very segregated.
And most of the time, you won't know anything about it until you get in it.
Right.
Right. So when you get in it, wherever you start, in most cases, won't be where you end up.
Yeah. And then, you know, like I said, when I was a music publisher, you know, I fought to get into my first publishing job, and I loved it, but I was always looking towards the future. And I said, my future you always have to be looking for the future, you know, when you take a job, and you always got to be projecting. You say, hey, 5 years from now, I want to do this. 10 years from now, I want to do this. So I knew music supervisor already while I was getting into publishing. I already knew what the next jump was.
Okay.
Because I was like, I really like film and television, and now I've just discovered this whole new job where I can be a film and TV person doing music.
Right.
So what's crazy is that, you know, while I was a music publisher, I worked not only on the creative side, but I worked on the film and TV side of music publishing. So I was basically a seller. I was the guy that was pitching to the music supervisors and networks. Then when I became a music supervisor, I became a buyer. So I was like, so I kind of becoming a music supervisor was very easy for me because of my experience as a music publisher.
Right.
You know what I mean? But then I went into publishing and went into music supervision and was on set working. And I was like, wow, I want to produce.
Okay.
So again, I plotted out the next jump. And so the next jump after that ended up being producing. So I worked as a music supervisor while working towards figuring out how can I cross over into production. So it was always like one jump for the next to the next, because you have to be able to look to the future, if that makes sense.
All right. So Rashidi, I see that you do a lot of things, and this industry is way more extensive than I even thought it was.
Yeah.
But in terms of just being a TV producer, right? How does a new person get started in that?
Well, I think it just depends on what side of producing you want to be on. So, you know, within the TV industry, you have scripted, you have non-scripted. So I think that, you know, each one has a different path.
Okay.
You know, within the producing path of scripted, a lot of times there are what's called non-writing producers and there are writing producers. So a lot of times when you watch TV and you see all those producer credits at the beginning of a show, a lot of those producers, which you'll see supervising producer, co-executive producer, executive producer, producer, co-producer, a lot of those are writers.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know that, but they're writers with producer responsibilities.
Okay.
Then you have the non-writing producers, which
But
really...
real quick, what is a writer with producer responsibility?
Well, a lot of times, and the way that it was created many years ago was that the Writers Guild allow writers to also be producers. So a lot of times, in the way that it's set up in writers' rooms is that each writer gets assigned an episode.
Okay.
So when you're assigned that episode, you're actually not just writing the script, but you're also responsible for producing that episode, meaning that all of the components and making sure that that the production aspect of what you wrote is incorporated into the to the actual finished product, you're responsible for that episode.
Right. So real quick, if you was to be able to tell us exactly what a producer does, and I know there's different types of producers that do different type of things, but in terms of what you're talking about right now,
On the scripted side.
yes, what exactly would a producer be doing?
Well, again, it just depends on if you're a non-writing or a
So,
writing
no,
producer.
if you're a writing one,
But
based
if you're
upon
a
what you're
writing
saying.
producer, then a lot of times your role is just making sure that all the components of that episode fit within the confines of the script that you wrote.
Like what kind of components?
So, if you made a story like, let's say, Big Bang Theory or something like that. Let's say you're one of the writer producers on there. So, if you came up with an idea of them going to a carnival or whatever the case, then you're the creative person that kind of makes sure that all the aspects of that, are incorporated.
So you hire the people to find the location. And
That's what the non-writing producer does.
Okay.
So the non-writing producers are really more the physical producers.
Okay.
They're the people that are going to do all that. You're just the creative person that's actually going to be more incorporated into the episode that you're producing, that you're in charge of. Meaning that, everything that you do for that you've written on that episode, you're basically there to make sure that look, the design, the direction, everything that's in the script is done from a producer's perspective. And then there are writing producers called showrunners that oversee the whole thing. They're the executive producers. Sometimes they're the creators, sometimes they're not. It just depends. But those people, they're involved with wardrobe decisions. They're involved with location, scouting.
So for example, if you write in the fat old grandma, you're there to make sure that there's a fat old grandma.
Yeah, you might be involved with casting,
Right.
or
and make sure that she looks how you want it to look for the sake of your character.
Right. It's really more of a creative producing component.
Okay.
That's attached to the script that you wrote.
Okay. And then now the non-writer producer is the one who puts all the components together, who hires.
And there are different types of non-writing producers. Some of those people are network execs. So they're people that give notes on scripts. They're people that are, overseeing the physical production. And then there's actual non-writing producers who may own the production company, or might be the execs at the production company.
That would be like a role that you would play.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So
or sometimes they could be the talents, the manager of the person who created the show. A lot of times those guys are attached to produce as non-writing producers. So
almost anybody could be a non-writing producer.
Yeah. But you have to be vetted and qualified.
Right. Say for example, the Jam Master Jay thing that you worked on. What was your position as a producer on that?
So everything. So that's a nonfiction project. So that's non-scripted.
Okay.
So we talked about the scripted one. Now on the non-scripted side, it's literally everything. We're writing the questions for the people we're interviewing. We're picking locations. We're deciding, the direction and the tone of how the project is. We're also involved with the physical part. So, picking the cameras, hiring the people, firing people, looking at overseeing the schedule with our production manager that's going to create our day, our production day. So it's really more of like a management position, where you're just kind of overseeing everything and making sure that it's, done and executed.
And so for all of these different positions, right? I mean, of course, there's different pay rates and scales and situations depending upon the show and what's the salary looking like? Like, how does it work? The pay scale, is it per series, per episode? Is it how does that work?
Well, on the scripted side, those writing producers that I spoke about, those people usually get paid per episode, and usually it's based on, because it's a union job, it's based on the WGA scale rate. Now, depending on what level you're at, if you're at a lower level, then you get paid every week. You can get paid, upwards of $3,000-$4,000 a week.
Okay.
You know, as a lower level staff writer, executive story editor, or story editor, which are the lower. Those are all weekly rates. Now, when you get above and you become a producer,
Right.
that's when you get paid per episode.
Okay. And what are those numbers?
Could be anything, range from 10,000 an episode to 40,000 an episode.
Depending on the budget and the scale.
Well, depending on your level, because remember, everything on the scripted side is a guild.
Okay.
So it's a guild. They have minimums, meaning that you can't get paid lower than this.
The union
Right,
makes it like
because
that.
it's a union, you know, especially if you're a writer producer. And a lot of times you get paid as a producer, so you'll get a per episode rate as a producer, but then you'll also get a script fee, meaning that, you know, if you're assigned an episode and you write an episode, then you get paid a fee for writing the script, which could be $30,000 or $40,000 or something.
Okay.
So that's extra on top.
So they get paid really well.
They get paid very well, yeah.
And so
And then on the nonfiction side, it's basically whatever your rate is. You know, typically associate producers get paid usually like between $1,500 and $1,600 a week. Producers can get paid the upwards of $25,000 to $27,000 to $3,000 a week. You know, and then moving all the way up to executive producers who could get paid, you know, $5,000 to $6,000 a week, just depending.
but what if it's your project? How does that work?
On which side? On the scripted side or the nonfiction side?
On the scripted side.
On the scripted side, if it's your project, you know, if you're the person that created it, and creating is a very broad word because a lot of times people think, oh, well, I came up with the idea. But within the confines of the Writers Guild, that doesn't mean that you actually created it.
Okay.
You actually have to write the script to be considered the creator. So if you come up with the idea and then let's say you write the script, then technically you're the creator within the confines of the Writers Guild.
I see.
So it's a little complicated, you know.
Right.
But you know, this is where people get into disputes and then they have to arbitrate through the Writers Guild.
Right.
So
if you don't know what's really going on, it's complicated.
absolutely.
Especially if you're non-union, trying to get involved.
Right. And usually the unscripted is non-union and the scripted is union. So
Okay. So
that's how it
so
works.
unscripted are like reality shows and stuff like
reality, documentary, talk shows, late night. Well, actually late night is scripted,
that. Okay.
but you know, is technically WGA.
Okay.
So
if a person wanted to get involved, right? Say an 18-year-old,
right.
fresh out of college or still in college, wanted to get involved, and they really didn't know for sure exactly what they wanted to do, what would you recommend in terms of the career path and the direction?
Well, if you're interested,
And this is if they ultimately want to be a television producer.
yeah, I mean, you know, truthfully, on the scripted side, if you're interested in being a writer or a producer, then the key is really to write a spec script. You know, actually go and take the time to write a script so that you can kind of start using that as your currency.
Spec script, what is that?
And spec means you write it on speculative, which means free. Because of the Writers Guild, if you're a guild member, anytime you write something, you're supposed to get paid for it. If you write a treatment, if you write an outline, there's a fee for each thing. When you're in the guild, you're not allowed to write anything unless you're getting paid. So when you write something on spec, that means you write it for free.
Okay.
So if your goal is to do that, then you can use that script to become a writer's assistant in a writer's room. You can use that to become a script supervisor. Those are great entry points to get into a writer's room and work your way up so that you can get staffed, and then you'll eventually become a producer. Now, on the nonfiction side, the best way to start out is really working as a production assistant. That'll just give you a bird's eye view of what everybody's doing, and then that'll allow you to kind of figure out what move you want to make. You know, by being a PA, it'll just give you the access to being on set.
Right, because there's so many different jobs and positions.
Right,
that you
exactly.
probably wouldn't even know what you're good at. Right, that makes a lot of sense, man.
And you know, you'd be surprised as that you may think you want to do one thing, but then you go on the set and you're like, oh, I actually kind of like what the shooters do. You know, I want to operate the camera, or you know, I think everybody has a different idea of what they want.
So what's next for you, Rashidi Hendrix?
I'm just continuing to grow the business. I mean, you know, my main thing now is to kind of take the business to the next level. You know, I've created a scenario where we're about to raise some funding for our company, and so that we can own a lot of the content that we're producing.
Okay.
And you know, while still being have our studio relationships and partnerships. Currently, right now, I have a first look deal with a studio called Bonager.
Okay.
So what that means is that they're my studio partner in a lot of the shows that I produce.
Okay.
So I have the ability to give them a lot of the projects that I have first, and then they either have the first right of refusal to it, and that's kind of what a first look means.
Okay.
And they're the biggest production company in the world right now.
Oh, are they?
Currently, yes.
Okay.
So that's a great partnership. You know what I mean? And I think I want to continue to build off of that. But eventually, you know, I want to become a Bonager. You know,
right. I was going to ask you that.
I want to grow my business. I want to keep having more volume, more shows out there in the marketplace. Really become a production service entity. And you know, look, some of the stuff that I have planned over the next 2 years is going to be, you know, it's going to be epic. So.
Nah, that sounds good, man.
Yeah.
It sounds like, man, we have to do like 3-4 more episodes to just talk about everything that you do, man.
Yeah.
It's just so much, so broad. Because as you tell it to me, I'm like, wow, man, I didn't know half of this stuff, right?
Yeah, and you know, the television and you know, that's everything I was talking to you is just the television industry.
Right.
That's not even the feature side of the
Right.
business. So
Right.
you know, that's a whole nother sector that I
Right.
work in that you know is a totally different set of buyers, different set of relationships. So you know, being in the industry, you know, there's a lot of tentacles that you gotta have.
Right. So, man, when are we going to see your masterclass, man? When are you going to put together your masterclass to show everybody the inner workings and the how-to in terms of what you do?
Oh, you know, I think it's in the works. It sounds like it's
Yeah.
something that's coming up.
Right.
You know,
right.
I think a masterclass, you know, can really help people kind of get an idea and just a taste of, you know, what they may want to do.
Yeah.
And just really explain it. Because I think a lot of people that watch television and watch feature films, they know that they're really into it, but they don't know how it gets done. They don't know how
Right.
it gets made.
Right.
They don't know how the deals look. What is the business structure? How much do you get paid?
Right.
You know, so
That's the
maybe
number one question, right? How much you
Like,
get paid?
What's the fees? So, so I think that's what I can offer is, you know, those kind of questions, answer those questions.
Cool. So tell the audience where they can find you at, man.
I'm on Instagram. My Instagram is Rashidi Rara, to spell RASHIDIRARA, Rashidi Rara. I'm on LinkedIn. You can always hit me on Twitter, Rashidi Hendrix. I am always online.
That's what's up, man. So this is your boy Precise, and you can catch me again at PRESISE.biz. And remember, I have my masterclass on the way. We'll be launching it in a few weeks, so stay tuned, and I'll get back at y'all. Peace.